And welcome to the Knowing Show. I am your host, Christene Marie. I am so grateful to be here with you all this morning. I am going to be reading through a lesson of A Course in Miracles. Y'all, this show, the Knowing Show, is dedicated to the cultivation of the human intelligence. It is the intellectual, emotional, spiritual, and physical intelligence. And the goal of this show is that every day, every morning, we go live at 9 a.m. Eastern, and also on the weekdays, we'll go live in the afternoons or evenings with guests or just as solo episodes together. So the goal of this show is that we become better than before we entered this conversation. Specifically on YouTube, we have a really wonderful chat going on most of the days. And I just welcome you to come over and join us there, the Knowing Podcast. And if you're watching from Facebook, LinkedIn, thank you so much for joining. Y'all, this conversation is so important because we are living in the world where artificial intelligence is becoming more and more intriguing, more interesting, more capable than ever before. More and more people are actually looking to AI companions to satiate the need that humans have traditionally always filled. And so much of the reason for that is because we don't know how to do relationships. We weren't taught how to self-regulate, how to self-soothe. We weren't taught how to engage in a way that lets other people feel seen and known. We weren't taught how to be emotionally safe for others. So this show is really dedicated to those conversations, but also, who do I need to be in order to become that safe person? In order for me to be the parent, the leader, the coach that I've always wanted to be for myself, but also for those around me. It's really interesting because the definition of emotional intelligence is to be able to be aware of, understand, control, and convey one's own emotions, and the ability to engage interpersonally with empathy and with wisdom. So it goes hand in hand. It's both us understanding who we are and also understanding how to do relationships. And so on the Knowing Show, we talk about everything in between. So I'm so glad you're here, just hopping over into the chat. Wayne, I'm so glad to see you. I love you say, I expect miracles today. Love it. Good morning, my friend. I'm so glad you're here. Stephen, it's good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Y'all, we're just going to go ahead and dive into some review lessons leading up to today's, and then we'll go ahead and unpack today's lesson 130. Lesson 100. Actually, I'm going to start at lesson 91. Lesson 91, miracles are seen in light. Lesson 92, miracles are seen in light, and light and strength are one. Lesson 93, light and joy and peace abide in me. Lesson 94, I am as God created me. Lesson 95, I am one self, united with my Creator. Lesson 96, salvation comes from my one self. Lesson 97, I am spirit. Lesson 98, I will accept my part in God's plan for salvation. Lesson 99, salvation is my only function here. Lesson 100, my part is essential to God's plan for salvation. Lesson 101, God's will for me is perfect happiness. Lesson 102, I share God's will for happiness for me. Lesson 103, God being love is also happiness. Lesson 104, I seek but what belongs to me in truth. Lesson 105, God's peace and joy are mine. Lesson 106, let me be still and listen to the truth. Lesson 107, truth will correct all errors in my mind. Lesson 108, to give and to receive are one in truth. Lesson 109, I rest in God. Lesson 110, I am as God created me. Lesson 121, forgiveness is the key to happiness. Lesson 122, forgiveness offers everything I want. Lesson 123, I thank my Father for his gifts to me today. Lesson 124, let me remember I am one with God. Lesson 125, in quiet I receive God's word today. Lesson 126, all that I give is given to me. Lesson 127, there is no love but God's. Lesson 128, the world I see holds nothing I want. Lesson 129, beyond this world, there is a world I want. And lesson 130, today's lesson. It is impossible to see two worlds. Perception is constant. What you see reflects your thinking, and your thinking but reflects your choice of what you want to see. Your values are determiners of this. For what you value, you must want to see, believing what you see is really there. No one can see a world his mind has not accorded value, and no one can fail to look upon what he believes he wants. Yet who can really hate and love at once? Who can desire what he does not want to have in reality? And who can choose to see a world of which he is afraid? Fear must make blind, for this is its weapon. That which you fear to see, you cannot see. Love and perception go hand in hand, but fear obscures in darkness what is there. What then can fear project upon the world? What can be seen in darkness that is real? Truth is eclipsed by fear, and what remains is but imagined. Yet what can be real in blind imaginings of panic born? What would you want that this is shown to you? What would you wish to keep in such a dream? Fear has made everything you think you see. All separation, all distinctions, the multitude of differences you make up among the world, they are not there. Love's enemy has not been made up, or love's enemy has been made up, yet love can have no enemy. And so they have no cause, no being, no consequence. They can be valued, but remain unreal. They can be sought, but they cannot be found. Today we will not seek for them, nor waste this day in seeking that which cannot be found. It is impossible to see two worlds which have no overlap of any kind. Seek for one, the other disappears, but one remains. They are the range of choice beyond which your decision cannot go. The real and the unreal are all there to choose between, and nothing more than these. Today we will attempt no compromise where none is possible. The world you see is proof you have already made a choice as all-embracing as its opposite. What we would learn today is more than just a lesson that you cannot see two worlds. It also teaches that the one you see is quite constant with the point of view from which you see it. It is all a piece because it stems from one emotion and reflects its source in everything you see. 6 times today, in thanks and gratitude, we will gladly give 5 minutes to the thought that ends all compromise and doubt and go beyond them all at once. We will not make 1,000 meaningless distinctions, nor attempt to bring with us a little part of unreality as we devote our minds to finding only what is real. Begin your searching for the other world by asking for a strength beyond your own and recognizing what it is you seek. You do not want illusions, and you come to these 5 minutes emptying your hands of all the petty treasures of this world. You wait for God to help you, as you say, it is impossible to see two worlds. Let me accept the strength God offers me and see no value in this world that I may find my freedom and deliverance. God will be there, for you have called upon the great unfailing power which will take this giant step with you in gratitude. Nor will you fail to see his thanks expressed in tangible perception and in truth. You will not doubt what you will look upon, for though it is perception, it is not the kind of seeing that your eyes alone have ever seen before. And you will know God's strength and uphold you as you made this choice. Dismiss temptation easily today whenever it arises, merely by remembering the limits of your choice. The unreal or the real, the false or the true is what you see and only what you see. Perception is consistent with your choice, and heaven or hell comes to you as one. Accept a little part of hell is real, and you have damned your eyes and cursed your sight, and what you will behold is hell indeed. Yet the release of heaven still remains within your range of choice to take the place of everything that hell would show to you. All you need to say to any part of hell, whatever form it takes, is simply this: it is impossible to see two worlds. I seek my freedom and deliverance, and this is not a part of what I want. Man, y'all, Okay, I'm gonna do something I don't normally do. I want to pray for us. I want to pray for us because this lesson today is so incredibly powerful, and I really really actually want God's help in understanding this for myself and sharing it with y'all because this is so important. So I'm gonna pray. I don't normally do this, so you can just wait until I'm done, or you can join me. Father, I pray that you would be our guide. God, I just feel like this is so important. God, I know I need this. I need this lesson. God, I want to live in freedom and deliverance from hell, from the thoughts that we can think that can really produce death, that are not loving, that are really based in fear. And God, I ask that you show us how to move away from the hell of our minds, the hell of even our reality that we've created. And God, show us the power of our mind and the power of our thoughts and how to move into freedom. God, we want to see with your eyes. We want to think with your thoughts. Be our guide today. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, I'm going to go up to a section that I actually highlighted while I was reading. Who can desire what he does not want to have reality? And who can choose to see a world of which he is afraid? Fear must make blind, for this is its weapon. That which you fear to see, you cannot see. Love and perception thus go hand in hand, but fear obscures in darkness what is there. Y'all, I think that this is why it is so important that we understand how the body works. You know, physical intelligence is a very real thing. And there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score, written by Bessel van der Kolk. And Bessel van der Kolk was a psychotherapist who worked really heavily with understanding trauma and how trauma, what we've experienced in the past, is stored literally in our body. It's why people are thrown back into PTSD, where it's like all of a sudden they're thrown in the past. And the past is not here in the present, especially, you know, the best example he gives is like war veterans, how traumatizing it is on the battlefield, and then to come home and they can hear a little beep or a little thud, and all of a sudden they're taken back to Vietnam. And that's actually a case study that he gave in his book. But other examples too, a mom has a car accident with her children and then driving later, you know, years later, because she hasn't moved through the pain of that traumatic loss, regardless if, you know, the extent of the loss, but loss for whatever reason, if you have a really bad car accident. And there's another case study that he used in the book where she's driving and all of a sudden like a car comes out of nowhere that she just didn't see, but I mean, it's up ahead of her, but she gets thrown back into the past, and all of a sudden her vision goes dark and she just freezes. Because here's the thing, our brain is wired for safety. It's very primitive. It's very primal. It's not upgraded to the 21st century. It's not upgraded for the fact that we are driving cars and we're not hunting in caves. It still has data stored in it from millennia upon millennia. And so we still have this kind of survival brain that can kick into gear. In fact, it's been shown that when we still have 60% left in terms of like brain capacity. But at 40%, our survival brain kicks into gear because it doesn't want us to have to use up any more of that 60%. So at 40%, fight, flight, fawn, or freeze kicks in. Those are the kind of the 4 Fs. And predicated and based on fear, fear drives either one of these 4 responses, and our nervous system goes into high gear. It starts freaking out, and one of those initial responses begins to exhibit. The thing that's so interesting, though, is that whenever that part of our nervous system, just like how we talk about intellectual and emotional intelligence, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere of the brain, the nervous system has 2 parts. And the first part that really, it's very fear-based. It's reactive. It's looking around, it's on high alert, and it usually produces stress. But what's so interesting is that when our body starts producing stress too, it starts giving us more energy to conquer whatever thing we need to run away from that is threatening us. So our nervous system kicks into high gear, starts pumping more blood and giving us more energy and adrenaline. But in so doing, it shuts off our short-term memory, which is insane. That's why the past feels more real than the present, because our short-term memory right here, right now, we don't know. We don't remember anymore because we have heightened levels of stress. So our goal is to start learning how to activate the other part of our nervous system that actually brings us back down, and it brings us into peace and helps us get calm. And one of the very simple, easy practices, and really this is a practice, right? It's like riding your bike, you got to practice it. One of the practices is learning how to just take a deep breath. And really that brings our cortisol levels back down into, cortisol is what produces stress. So the deep breathing, it sends oxygen to that part of our brain that was shut down, that has short-term memory. So in the deep breathing, it kind of like sends oxygen back up to where we were lacking it to begin with. And it helps us remember, oh, I'm actually safe. Oh, I'm here in my home. I'm not back on a battlefield, or I'm not experiencing the car accident again. And this aspect of just simple, it's so simple. Yet we weren't taught this at the very beginning of the show. One of the things that we talked about was everything we weren't taught in school and in our homes growing up, even in religious settings. We weren't taught really simple ways to understand our body, mind, soul, spirit, and how they're all so interconnected. This concept of fear being the driver that then helps us to not see the reality for what it is. There's a spiritual dimension to it. There's a physical dimension to it. Emotionally, our emotions are connected because usually there is grief or sorrow or pain or ego, all tied in with the fear that prevents us from seeing the present moment. And then the thing is, cognitively, our brain is actually being dictated by our body. So our logical brain is actually shutting off in response when our fear, fight, flight, or freeze kicks in. It's like, well, obviously I know that I'm in my home. I cognitively know that. But are my actions being produced by my cognitive mind or my physical reaction? And so the deep breath kind of helps bring our cognitive brain back online so that our intellectual intelligence can be back up and running. So to this point, fear must make blind, for this is its weapon. That which you fear to see, you cannot see. So fear almost helps keep us blind and automatically causes us to have this reaction to keep us in survival mode for the sake of safety. But we're not able to see the reality of truth because, again, our cortisol spikes so high, depletes oxygen from where our short-term memory is stored. And so, thus, we're blinded to the truth of this present moment. So fear makes us blind because of our physical reaction to it. That's our survival instincts kick in. And so the goal then, and the question is, okay, well, how do I bring my body back into this state of peace so that my intellectual capabilities can be turned online and be part of the conversation again? So that's kind of point number one here. When we're talking about this concept of it is impossible to see two worlds, that's like the physical layer. If our body is in high stress, we cannot be here in the present moment. So that's first. And y'all, that's kind of when we're talking about fear, it's really important to understand how fear manifests intellectually, emotionally, physically, spiritually, because we do get prevented from seeing the truth of the moment. And understanding what is probably one of the most important things in this physical world. To know and to have access to our own intuition. In the Latin root of intuition is intuere, which means to be taught from within. If we're cut off from our access to our internal world, and we're running on this nervous system that's produced by fear based on the past of what happened to us, that's projecting the past onto the present, much less onto the future, that we cannot live to our fullest potential because we're living in reactive states rather than proactive. We're constantly living like on alert rather than being proactive in terms of who do I want to be? How do I want to be? What's the mission that I'm here for? How do I want to live today? Rather, what's going to happen today? How do I need to defend myself? How do I need to protect myself? That's very, 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 very different. But if we haven't healed from the past, our body is physically predisposed and preconditioned to live accordingly until we've healed the pain of the past that is stored in our cell tissue. So taking the time to do the work, to literally free ourselves. There's the book, Christmas Carol, and many movie adaptions written by Charles Dickens. And one of the characters in the film is named Jacob Marley. And he actually appears as a ghost because he previously died 7 years prior. And he shows up to the main character, Ebenezer Scrooge. So Jacob Marley shows up, and they were former business partners. Ebenezer Scrooge is currently alive, whereas Jacob Marley passed on. And Jacob Marley shows up with links and chains of these like money boxes that he's just dragging with him. And each one represents part of the past that he effectively took with him into death because he was living with such closed fists and was like not living free in the present. And thus he could not live free in death. And it represents this concept of what are we chained to in the past that we're like dragging with us into the present and into the future, where the past it's not just holding us back, but we actually cannot fully engage with freedom because our hands are tied, our legs are tied up. We've got a noose around our neck because we've got this deep pain or this anger or this vengeance that we're pulling with us from the past. And so we fundamentally cannot be free here in the present, much less so move into the future with freedom. So I want to scroll down. Okay. Today we will attempt no compromise where none is possible because we cannot have both. We cannot have freedom in the present and holding on to anger of the past. The world you see is proof you have already made a choice as all-embracing as its opposite. What we would learn today is more than just the lesson that you cannot see two worlds. It also teaches that the one you see is quite constant from the point of view from which you see it. It is a peace because it stems from one emotion and reflects its source in everything you see. Y'all, what we see in the world around us is a reflection to us about how we view the world. If people are being unkind, that's the way you're viewing the world. If people are being kind, that's the way you're viewing the world. It's so interesting. I was on a run 2 days ago, and it was just a very normal, I'm running between buildings, and there's like some flowers, but I'm running in between buildings. And I just had this thought. I was like, you know what? I could make this the most beautiful run if I choose. And I decided to make it beautiful. And suddenly it was like that a film was lifted, and I started noticing the flowers and the birds and listening to them chirp. And all of a sudden it was just the landscape in front of me was no longer this dusty trail between buildings. All of a sudden it was full of color and life. And I was so grateful. I was so grateful to be alive. You know, y'all, there are two ways to see the world, and we get to choose. And here's the thing, here's the other aspect of really what this is talking about. It's impossible to see two worlds. So either the world is the one according to God's point of view, or the one according to my point of view, apart from God, sans God. There is this concept by Richard Rohr. He's a Franciscan priest, and I read his book, Immortal Diamond. I didn't even finish it. I've got it right over there on my shelf. And he talks about the true self versus the false self. And as I was reading it, it resonated so much. I actually included some of his concepts in my book because, and I was already done my book, but I was like, I need to put this in there. This concept of the false self is the self that has been formed by our nurture, by the moments around us. And not, nurture is not bad. So bear with me while I explain this. Nurture being our experiences, who we were told to be, who we were taught to be, who we were expected to be by our environment, by even our teachers, by our boss, by our partner, by our kids. All of this external physical expectation of us is so much of what constitutes the false self. Now, we were also told and taught and encouraged to be the best we possibly could be, pulling forth our nature. So we've got our nature, we've got our nurture. And who we were made by God to be is the true self. That's free and limitless and full of hope and joy and peace and vibrant and alive. And then we've got the false self, kind of shrouded and clouded by these expectations. And really, this is where you see those 4 F's: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn activate, is in the false self, where we're living reactive or trying to judge how we should show up based on the expectations and opinions and worth measures of others. That's the false self. And so when we're talking about these two worlds, we're seeing two completely different worlds based on if we're operating in the true self, aligned with God's vision for the world, or our false self, aligned with the horizontal external. Y'all, this concept of vertical alignment, we've talked about it a decent amount on the show. Vertical alignment is the principle of bringing my whole entire being, my mind, body, soul, spirit, into vertical alignment of with God at the hierarchy of who do you say I am? What am I created to do? Why am I here? And then I'm going to bring everything into submission to that. And then the practice of vertical alignment is usually every single morning, taking however long, sometimes it's 20 minutes, sometimes it's an hour, and journaling, praying, just spending time in God's presence. And also that's the time that I can choose to create, to be taught from within, intuition, intuary. And so this time of vertical alignment orients my entire gaze, all of my attention, and thus my energy back to my source, with God being the source. Because it says here, what you would learn today is more than just the lesson that you cannot see two worlds. It also teaches that the one you see is quite consistent from the point of view from which you see it. It is a piece, it is all a piece because it stems from one emotion and reflects its source in everything you do. The world we see reflects our source. So am I vertically aligned? Is the world I'm seeing reflecting God? Seeing the birds and hearing them chirp and seeing the flowers and just looking at every person with love because they are made in the image of God and we are brothers and sisters. Or is it from the horizontal? Am I horizontally aligned, looking to everyone else and everything around me to be the source from which I derive my meaning and my worth? And thus, when I look about, it's actually, I'm predicated in fear. I'm operating my false self. I'm like, am I enough? What do you think of me? Are you happy? Are you good? And it's very fear-based, very reactive. And then the last part that I actually wanted to talk about was just this last section. It says, accept a little part of hell as real, and you have damned your eyes and cursed your sight, and what you will behold is hell indeed. Yet the release of hell still remains within your range of choice to take the place of everything that hell would show you. All you need to say to any part of hell, whatever form it takes, is simply this: it is impossible to see two worlds. I seek my freedom and deliverance, and this is not a part of what I want. Yo, we have full and total control over our minds. I don't know how I learned this. When I was 3 years old, 4 years old, I saw a magazine. It was somewhere, I think it was actually in my house. So I don't know how, it was like a dirty magazine. And I picked it up and I just immediately like threw it away. And I started learning this. And I think, I don't know if I was old enough to say this back then, but the narrative that I have ever since I was a child, like as early as I can remember, is the verb, or not the verb, the narrative that would come out of my mouth, or even just think in action in response to thoughts that are life depleting, that are not who I want to be, would be go back to hell. It was, oh, this thought is hellish. It could be something incredibly demented, incredibly evil. It could be just something incredibly unkind. But we all have these thoughts where it's like, oh, where did that come from? And it's like, nope, to hell with you. Get out. I'm not going to entertain that thought. That is not who I am. We get to tell ourselves who we are, because what we think about is ultimately what we will then see in the world and who we will inevitably become. That is why every thought we need to take captive. We need to examine it and say, is this who I want to be? The thought itself is not from us, but if we take it and make it be a part of us, it will become who we are and who we show up as in the external world. And so this thought of whatever thought is coming in, we have a choice. Are we going to entertain this? Are we going to give our attention and thus our energy to that thought? Or are we going to do away with it? I have a lot of fearful thoughts sometimes where it's like, I literally had a bad dream that somebody showed up at my house and killed me. And it was somebody I knew. And I'm like, okay, I got to take control of my mind. I'm sleeping and dreaming about this. So that was my big warning sign of like, okay, I either need to address this and deal with it, and maybe there's something deeper. And, or we talked about this last week. I forgot about this. We talked about how there's kind of two different ways to engage with thoughts. One is just to take it captive and say, you know what? No, get to hell with you, get out. And then the other is to actually recognize this is a sign that I'm really not doing well. I actually need to heal this part of me. Something's wrong. This thought is showing me, it's reflecting me a way that I'm viewing the world. It's reflecting and showing me that this is something that needs to be tended to, that needs to be healed. And so this thought actually warrants great attention, great care, because it's revealing something so deep inside of me. There's a book called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. And he talks about our minds being like a garden, where every single, I guess you could say, it's not just a thought, but it's a belief system. And so a thought can be kind of topsoil. And if you start pulling at it, you're like, oh, this goes really, really deep. And then you trace it all the way down and you want to get it to the root, because sometimes the thought that we're thinking has the roots of a belief system. So to just pluck it, it's not actually doing the work. So to just say, oh, to hell with you, sometimes it actually is just like a tiny, tiny little weed. But that thought could very well have roots all the way down into the genesis of like the past. And that's where the past shows up so often, is in our thoughts about ourselves and about the world around us, and even God. This is where understanding our four intelligences, intellectual, emotional, spiritual, and physical, we have thoughts and belief systems in every single one. And so understanding, man, I have this deep-rooted belief about God. Is it true? Is it something that I have chosen, or is it something that I inherited? This belief system that I have around even the physical body, about working out, or about how I should look, is this belief about how I should look and how I should show up in my physical body, is that from something that I have intentionally created, or a reaction to what culture says I should look like? That is incredibly important, because how much of our own ideal about ourselves have we proactively created versus we're living in reaction to who everyone else says we should be? So with that, I am going to take a moment and jump here in the chat. Y'all, it is so good to see you. Let me just go down and look. One Star Rising, happy Mother's Day. Good to see you. Wayne, I'm so glad to see you, as always, my friend. Evie, first to watch, good morning. Rudy, good morning. T, Bird and Shade. That's it. He says, it's not always fear. You can feel threatened without feeling afraid or fearful. You can feel worried or concerned without feeling fear or dread. I love that you said that, because, you know, it's so, so, so true. There's like the wisdom of, oh, this isn't good. I need to get out of this situation. versus living in reaction and living really truly where your fear is the one in the driver's seat. The goal is that fear can have a voice and it can say what it feels and and I say knows lightly, but it has a voice and we can listen and it can weigh in, and then we are the ones, our true self is the one in the driver's seat. I am actually, let me do this. Steve, good morning. I'm glad to see you. Okay, I'm saving this chat because I like going back and looking at all of the comments. All right, here we go. I know SNS says, unfortunately, most of your chat is lost. I know. I lost some of it, which is sad. All right, just scrolling. Nagesh, good morning, or good evening to you, Nagesh. Steve Williams, good morning. Stephen, good morning. Beto, good morning. Lig, Mags, Keanu, good morning. Amber, good morning. Mesman, Marco, Sam Clark, that cool kid, good morning. I love this. Steve Stanels, good morning, Steve, says, hell exists only in the mind of men. Word. That's so good. Byron, good morning. Tito, good morning. Essonance, good morning. Thank you. I'm so glad to see you. Good guy, good morning. Marco, good morning. TJ, good morning. Just scrolling down. Okay. As a man thinketh, so is he. Is a quote that book's title came from. It's a quote, I think, from the Bible. No, I think you're right. As a man thinketh, so is he. T-Bird, I think you're absolutely right. I agree. People have been conditioned, Wayne. It's so interesting. Jordan Peterson, and I know everybody has opinions on Jordan Peterson today. I'm talking about the Jordan Peterson 6 years ago. He brought up this concept of it is of such critical importance that a man knows how to battle out different thoughts in his own mind. So that, and actually, I think my sister does this really, really well. To have a thought and then be able to contend with it so that we ourselves are our own judge and jury. Yes, this is also where community comes in, and it's so important that we hear from others, because to your point, SNNs and Wayne, people are conditioned. We all are. And we were talking about this the other day too. We have been told, how to load the dishwasher. We've been taught that this is the ideal soap. We've been inundated because we're consumers and we're consuming information about every single thing in our lives. And so obviously we don't have the luxury of time to go and question everything, but there are certain aspects that warrant our examination, and it really has to do with those core belief systems that drive us, and really to examine, is this what I believe? Is this what I want to live and adhere my life to? Because the reality is that at some point or another, I was 28 when I feel like I kind of woke up and I was like, wait, what? Who am I? I was 28 when I started asking those questions. For others, they're 55. Some, they're 12. You know, they're really existential and very thoughtful at a very, very young age. I was not. I had something really, really hard happen that kind of woke me up. And so this thought of being able to contend in our own mind with the thought that comes up, even the pre-existing belief system, are we aware enough of other concepts, other thoughts, other beliefs that we could actually have a healthy internal debate? And I think that's a really, really good question. Can we even contend with our own selves? Or are we so like deeply, like kind of like heels digging in? Like, no, I am resistant to have conversations with others or even with my own self that could help me expand. Steve Williamson says, pray to God to fix your dishwasher. That was so funny. So all that to say, I love that thought of internal contending. And I think, frankly, that could very well be a sign of a cultivated mind. Can you go toe to toe with your own former belief systems? And maybe you're like, yeah, I actually really do believe that. That is where I'm going to stake my flag yet again. But a month from now, could you re-engage that thought if somebody presents new information to be like, oh, I didn't think of it that way? Are we living with like a closed fist over our beliefs? Because any beliefs that we're closed fisted over, I actually don't think they were really able to receive new information. You know, if we're not continuously allowing our beliefs to be updated with new data from our current belief system or current environment here as adults, if our beliefs were formed at 7, 12 years old, well, how much of life, how much of ourselves have updated and upgraded? And do we now know? So there's a lot of things over the last 5 years that I've really been examining. We're not 12, and we're also the ones in the driver's seat of our own life. So for any belief system that we adhere to that is not ours, that we have not created with intention, I believe warrants examination. It might be that the very thing that my mom believes is what I will end up deciding. Yes, okay, I do believe this, but now I'm believing it for myself, not because I subconsciously believe that because my mother said so. And it could be anybody, anyone. It could be the TV show. It could be the song lyrics that you listen to all throughout your teendom. Y'all, we subconsciously adhere to belief systems that were given to us, that we repeated over and over and over again, that were modeled for us. The power of song lyrics is real. I got in a car with my friend the other day and they played their favorite artists. And I was like, oh, now I know why you see the world the way that you do. I had never seen such a clear delineation between somebody's belief system and the source. We all have a source for our beliefs. The question is whether it is you being the source of your own beliefs and, you know, God being the source of your own beliefs or the external. T2, I'm so glad you said this is my first time on the stream. She just popped up in my algorithm. Yay. Good to see you. Sai, I'm so glad you're here. Yay. FF Forever Young, I do see the comments. Sometimes it takes a little while to catch up, but yes. You can't leave this empty. I actually loved 12 Rules for Life. I thought that was such a good book. I know today he is pretty different. I think he's changed a lot in terms of who he's aligning himself with, but I loved kind of the, what's the right word to say that? What's the right word? Jordan Peterson used to be very almost like agnostic with his political beliefs, and I really liked that. He was just a study and he was a student of philosophy and a student of life, and I really, really loved his approach. 7-8 years ago. Kavis, good morning. Underboss, good morning. Default, good morning. All right, let me save this chat. All right, scrolling back in the chat. Let's see. T-Bird. This woman isn't for everyone. Evolution of the heart and mind is, how do I say this, an acquired taste. It's really interesting. You know, I realized, so I have a branding and marketing agency, and I realized this a couple years ago, that if I'm going to be, it's so funny. I even feel it now. I feel vulnerable in this moment as I say this. So here we go. I had this moment a couple years ago where I realized that if I want to speak the truth and walk in the fullness of who God created me to be, I'm going to have people really not like me. And for the majority of my life before that, it had been everything that I could do to make sure that I had people. I just love people. And so the thought of people actively not liking me was like, oh my gosh. And it could very well be people I love. What if my family stops liking me? What if people in my close corner, if I start being me, what if people stop liking me? And so that was a real, that's all of us. We have to make that decision. Am I going to be vertically aligned, walking in the fullness of who God says that I am, who He created me to be, and align myself with this mission for which I was created in the first place? Or am I going to be horizontally aligned? Am I going to source my worth, my meaning, my value out, source it out to everyone and everything externally out there versus, all right, God, you tell me who to be. It's okay if I'm not liked. It's okay if I don't fit in. It's okay if I don't adhere to the status quo. So y'all, really, if everyone in our lives thinks that we're wonderful, maybe we're not actually speaking the full truth. And that's a really, really hard question to contend with. If everybody loves me, am I actually speaking the truth? And we don't have to speak the truth with a gavel. It's all to be powered by love. That's what we were talking about this morning. It's impossible to see two worlds. Am I going to align myself and have God be the source through which I view the world and see the world, or fear? Most everybody else around me operating based off of how they think, living in reaction. Who's going to be the source? What we see in the external world around us is a reflection of what we think, and ultimately who we're creating ourselves to be. 18 Wild, good to see you. I love this. God is for me. Nick, it's good to see you. John Kisser. Yes. I'd love to hear what's going on with your kidneys. I'm so sorry. X Altid, let's go ahead and be kind here, please. Just scrolling down. Sad Huja, where are you from? I grew up in Maryland. Maryland in the States. Where are you from? Tony, good to see you. Jim, good morning. Quagmire, good morning. Marco, I think that's actually such a beautiful perspective. Steve, Jordan Peterson, a psychologist. I didn't know that he did ayahuasca. Also, is that what that is? No, that's not ayahuasca. I was going to say, I've never seen ayahuasca spelled out, but I just made that up. I don't know what that is. I guess he took something. When I say agnostic politically, it was more so he didn't align himself with any party. He kind of remained like hands off, aligning himself with a political stance. And thus it was like everybody could receive what he had to say because he didn't take a side. And I actually think that there's something, this is the element of, going back to what we were saying earlier about not being liked, speaking the truth. I think it's really important of like, what is the message, the mission of why I'm here? So if his mission is to be an act philosopher, If he's then to be loud politically, that immediately demarcates. People don't want to engage with him, and thus his message becomes diluted. But if he is here for political activacy, well, then to maybe espouse philosophy or even religious ideology, then immediately that's a demarcator. And then his political stance is now kind of diluted. So I think it goes either way. Whatever your mission, be careful what else we say that will potentially dilute it and potentially demarcate people from something other than the very thing that is of most importance to you. Nick, Southeastern Wisconsin, saying hi. Oh, thank you for joining. I'm glad you were here. Marin says, if you talk like this on a first date, you're going to scare the guy off. Noted. Thank you. Alfonso, good morning. Human, good morning. T-Bird, I love that. B-Fault. Oh my gosh. Wayne, thank you. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so glad you're here. Tech, good morning. Good to see you. Joselle, good morning. Happy Mother's Day. Bone, good morning. Marco says, I got abandoned by my family. Wow. I'm so sorry, Marco. Wow. That's so hard. I feel that. I'm like, I can't, I really would be so devastated if that happened to me. So I'm so sorry, my friend. Elks Aldi, I'm going to go ahead and block you. We don't talk like that here. Jabba, good morning. Michael, good morning. We actually earlier we read A Course in Miracles, and we were talking about it. And on the Knowing Show, for those of you who are new here to the Knowing Show, we talk about the human intelligence and the cultivation of it. And we talk about we break it down in 4 intelligences: intellectual intelligence, which we've all been cultivating since we were kids; emotional intelligence, which is really actually the definition of emotional intelligence is to be aware, understand, control, and convey one's own emotions, and the ability to handle interpersonal relationships with empathy and with wisdom. And so that is the definition of emotional intelligence. And then we also talk about spiritual and physical intelligences. Our body, specifically this morning we were talking about physical intelligence, our body keeps the score. That's a title of a book by Bessel van der Kolk. And he specifically addresses how in trauma, specifically with war veterans, that's where PTSD comes from. It's because our body stores information, it stores memories. And so for so long as we're not doing the work to understand the past, we bring the past with us, and we're living in the present in reaction to the past. And thus, when we look ahead, we are actually not even free to dream and vision for the future, because we're projecting the fear of the past onto the future. Because if we haven't healed from it, we're taking it with us here and now and then projecting it forward. And so for so long as we have not allowed ourselves to heal and to do that work of really understanding what happened to me, why do I think this way, why do I believe this? So the examination of our belief systems is one of the most important things we could possibly do to ensure that we're really able to live free and become creators. Guys, that's the thing. On the other side of releasing the past is creation. We're now free to dream. We're free to create and make something new. Yeah, I used to call shell shock. Yes, that's so true, Steve. Y'all, I am so glad that you all joined. I need to jump off here. Thank you so much for joining. I will be back on tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. We'll read through the next Course in Miracles. And then we also have, so we go live every morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. And then we also go live in the afternoons. So I would love for you to join tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern. I will see you then. Enjoy your Sunday. Enjoy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. I'm so grateful for my mom. She's the most wonderful. So anyways, y'all have a wonderful Sunday. I will see you tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern sharp. Bye.